In this session, we'll talk about the essentials that an executive really should know about the Rhone region in France. Now, when we say the essentials, we really mean a few things. One, we mean what are the grapes from the region, a given region? What are the flavors and aromas that one can expect in a glass of wine from that region? How do I pair that wine with food? Let's say if I'm ordering or matching a bottle to a meal in a client setting or restaurant. And then four, what bottles should I really know? What are the iconic bottles of a given region? The bottles I shouldn't mistake or I should recognize if someone were to purchase them or if they were on a menu. Now, in the Rhone, there are certain essentials as well that I think are important to note, and we've got them listed here. What you want to think about is the Syrah grape in the north. The Rhone is divided into northern Rhone, southern Rhone. So in the north, think about the grape Syrah. Also think about the white grape Viognier. Viognier is a very aromatic white grape that originates from the northern Rhone. When you think about the south, southern Rhone, and we'll elaborate on this, think about a mix. In southern Rhone, some of the most popular wines are a mix of up to 13 grapes, some of which red, some of which white. So it's a big mix, mélange. And if you think about that region, the wine to identify with that mix is Châteauneuf-du-Pape. This is a southern Rhone style of wine, a southern Rhone wine, that involves that mix of those up to 13 grapes. So here we show Rhone in the context of France. So Rhone is in the south. The Rhone River Valley, it's a river that rises up, and you can see the vineyards trace this river region, the northern area, and of course the southern area, as I described. The grapes, we talked about it for a moment. The red grapes are Syrah and a Grenache, the two blended together. More Syrah in the north, and then a bit more Grenache being blended in the south, in southern Rhone. The most important white from the region to know is Viognier. It isn't made in large production quantity, but it's very special and interesting for you to know. So, starting off with the red grapes, let's talk about Syrah. Syrah, if someone brings you a Syrah, and in particular a Syrah from the Rhone, from northern Rhone is where they're most commonly associated, what can you expect? Now, Syrah from the Rhone is not exactly the same as Syrah from other parts of the world. Now, the grape is the same, but the style will be a bit different. So some things that are the same, think raspberry, jam. You get jam on a lot of New World Syrah, but think about jam as well as Syrah. Tar, think chocolate, but also importantly think smoke and black pepper. Maybe black pepper in particular. I think I pick up a lot of black pepper on Rhone wines. Some people also indicate a rosemary or lavender, but I think the black pepper is the part that I would probably pick out as being more characteristic. In terms of pairing this wine with food, well, how would you pair it? Think about that black pepper characteristic when you go to pair it. So, of course, that would lend itself toward peppery sauces. Here, it's a big red wine, so don't think about white fish, for example. Think about meats, so lamb, sausage, grilled meats. And that peppery characteristic and that smoky characteristic can also be a good complement for pungent herbs and spices. Now, which bottles should you know? Which bottles are iconic to the Rhone? First, think about areas within the Rhone. So for northern Rhone, the most important areas, one is the Côte Rôtie. That's one area within the Rhone that makes very important and big red Syrah wines. In particular, Guigal, Marcel Guigal is one of a very important winemaker in that area. He has 3 single vineyard offerings known as the Lalas, each beginning with La. These are 3 single vineyard offerings, all of which are cult level wines. You really just can't even get a hold of them. Very, very special wines, very expensive wines, iconic to northern Rhone and to Côte Rôtie. Also think Hermitage. Hermitage is another area within the northern Rhone that is very well known for the quality of its Syrah. So Côte Rôtie and Hermitage in terms of areas or labeling. If you see either on a label, you know you're dealing with northern Rhone, and you know you're dealing with Syrah. Now, Grenache. Grenache is another grape that's characteristic or indigenous to the Rhone. The Grenache grape is more typical in southern Rhone in terms of its proportion in the blend. So in the southern Rhone, they still use Syrah, but they will blend it with the Grenache and sometimes with many other grapes. So when you think Grenache, think southern Rhone. Here it's a bit different than the Syrah grape. So here think sour cherry. If someone brings you a glass, think cranberry, violet. This is a high alcohol grape. It can be used to bring a bit more alcohol into the mix. Not a very deep color grape, but it is high in alcohol, and it has that pepper characteristic as well. So often a very good blending grape, and it'll bring the alcohol levels up in wine. It's very punchy. Here, in terms of pairing it, think slow-cooked stew, think roast lamb, think something to warm you up on a winter's night, with that high alcohol content perhaps. Game birds, turkey would also be fine matches. Tomato-based sauces would go well with this red wine, or with any Southern Rhone, a Southern Rhone bottle. Names to look out for, or labels to look out for, bottles to know. Look for a Châteauneuf du Pape on the label. This would indicate, that this is made with up to 13 grapes, one of which could be white. You can even blend the white Viognier grape in with that to an extent. It adds some aromatics. But then also think about the area of Côte du Rhône. So if you see a bottle labeled Côte du Rhône, that indicates Southern Rhone, and that indicates that you probably have a good proportion of Grenache in that mix. Moving to the white grapes. Really the only white grape that I would know, or that as an executive I think would be important to bear in mind, because it's unique to the area and it's a special grape, is the Viognier grape. And this is grown typically up in the Northern Rhone area, well throughout, but it has a special home in the Northern Rhone. Here, this is sort of perfume in a glass. So if somebody brings you this, look for passion fruit, peach, honeysuckle, extremely aromatic. That's what it's known for. So it should sort of blow you away with its aroma profile. It could have ginger or grass characteristics as well, but really look for that extremely aromatic profile. That's what will let you know that you have a Viognier in your hand. If you're pairing that with something, you could pair that well with dishes that hint at sweet. That could be savory, but also sweet. So, for example, Thai food comes to mind. Maybe Indian or Moroccan dishes would also work very well with this, because it'll bring the sweetness and the aromatics that could match. Shellfish and lobster also very, very at home with this wine. A variety of cheeses it would be nice with as well. Now, bottles to know, or areas in particular to know, think Condrieu. So if you were to see Condrieu, that's an area that's very well known for Viognier in particular. But again, Viognier, it doesn't only stand on its own in white wines, it's also blended in with the Southern Rhone reds, which is a bit interesting and special about that wine. So coming back now to close with the essentials that we talked about. Think Syrah in the north, and the Northern Rhone, so the Syrah grape will drive the blend. Then think Viognier whites, also from the north, Condrieu we talked about, the area. You have a big mix in the south. So in the south, you still have Syrah. You're also blending in Grenache, and then even Viognier as well. Up to 13 grapes, for example, in the last bottle, this area we've indicated here, Châteauneuf du Pape. A very good example of a Southern Rhone where that mix comes into play, and a very nice one.